Good morning. This is Tanie Reed-Walker, counselor with Barron's Eureka Warner Family and Community Support Services, here on Monday morning. Today is December 7th, 2020. We're pushing towards the end of the year. It's kind of amazing that it's happened. We're here. This space is for grief and loss, and normally I speak mostly about loss and grief related to death. This little series that we're doing is not just related to loss through death, it's also through loss of life transitions. And I'm really thinking this is a powerful time to be working on moving that grief that we hold inside us, that our society has taught us to push down and just push forward, and to move it out. I am, of course, following Dr. Alan Wolfelt. You all know I do really appreciate his work. This book is Living in the Shadows of the Ghosts of Grief, Step into the Light, Reconcile Old Losses, and Opening the Door to Infinite Joy and Love. And I really feel that as we mourn our losses and allow them and the pain to transform us, we're able to better accept and love the experiences that are happening for us, that come to us. We're able to integrate the good and the not so great into our lives so that we're living a more whole life. Hi, Prisma. Thanks for joining. Really, a lot of the times when we're carrying grief and denying grief from all of the transitions and things that have happened in our lives, we're scared to have new experiences because those experiences inevitably will contain amazing things, but they also can contain some really painful things. So this book is 5 parts. Today we're going to do the introduction. So introduction based on what Dr. Alan Wolfelt has for an introduction, and then whatever I want to add. And also we'll be doing part 1. Part 1 is Change Means Loss, Loss Means Grief, and Grief Requires Mourning. The other 4 parts are listed in the description for this video, so you can look forward to those in the future. I should probably say, for anybody that is just started watching, FCSS, www.fcss.ca is the website for the organization that I work with. They have a wide variety of services for people that's of all ages, all genders, all everything. So check us out. We provide our services for free as well. We are funded municipally and provincially, so we are a very, very awesome resource for Southern Albertans. Okay, let's get started. So the introduction. I love this because it's so true. I've already kind of talked a little bit about it, but human beings, we're often really trying to identify ourselves as individuals, and I'm really good at this and that person's really good at that, and we often individualize ourselves in our North American colonialist culture. The thing that we don't do is realize that we are connected all together, and that is because we all experience loss and grief. You cannot have change in your life without a loss. One of my biggest things I talk about is just even like high school. When you graduate from high school and then you move into adulthood, it's supposed to be this really exciting change, and it is, but it's also a change. You're going to lose that security of knowing, this is what I do. I go to school and this is how I get taken care of by my parents, and all of those routines, they fall by the side, and you have to adapt and change to a new life. And there's, oh my Lanta, so many losses in there. Lots of losses of friendship, that stability, loss of like some of the freedom that occurs. There's lots, and a lot of us don't even talk about or acknowledge that loss. There's losses when you get into a relationship. You lose some of your freedoms naturally. You have to consider somebody else in your world. You don't want to make them your entire world, but you do lose some of those freedoms and the options that are out there. It's good, but it's still a loss. And there's some mourning that can happen, that should happen, when you're realizing the losses that are occurring. And then if you decide to have a child, again, there's a big loss. There's that loss of just being footloose and fancy free. Now you have somebody that you need to take care of and guide. And again, it's a great thing. However, it also has a lot of grief involved with it. So all of these natural transitions, they hold a lot of celebration in our culture, and a lot of excitement for the new, and we don't spend very much time, if any, on the sadness that comes with that. Our experiences are not just one emotion. Our experiences are tons of emotion. So when you stuff down those scarier kind of emotions, they just kind of live inside you, and they stay, and they pile up on each other, and they start to affect your world in all kinds of ways. So what we're doing on this series is helping you identify what those might be. Are you somebody who's carrying some grief? How do you get through that? How do you dig that stuff up without, like, you know, just imploding your life? Like, it just seems like a scary, gross kind of situation. So I am here to help you find out how to bring those up. You're not going to dig up the whole thing. It's kind of like when they're deep diving and there's like a sunken ship that might have treasure in it. It's really hard. You can't bring up the whole ship because it'll just fall apart, or it might sink down the boat that's already there. You're just going to take dives in, you're going to pick out a few things, you're going to bring it up, you're going to look at it, you're going to like clean it off, you're going to examine it, and then you're going to decide what to do with it after. So we're kind of doing some deep sea diving here in this series. Oh, I wasn't sure I was going to have enough to say today, but apparently I do. Thank you for joining us, and please share these videos and let other people know, and like create space in our world for people to dig up these emotions that they've stuffed down, and like, oh my gosh, everyone can start to thrive more. With COVID, we have more stuffing happening, and it'd be nice if we could just have more growth happening. Okay, back onto the book. Let's see. So we've talked about people kind of avoiding losses. We like to move around our grief. We don't like to sit in it. We don't like to move through it. We just want to just ignore it. It doesn't exist. And we're going to here create a safe space for that, and hopefully help you figure out how to create safe spaces in other areas, of your life. So as I do this, and as you do this, we're going to grow, and we're going to learn, and that's what being human is. I'm a human. I've had losses. I grieve, and I've really learned to lean into mourning now. And it opens things up so much more, and it makes me much more compassionate to people I know and love. So if somebody has a story to tell about something that normally I'd be like, well, just move on. Like, what's the big deal? Why are you so sad about that? Now I can dig into a place of myself and go, okay, I understand. Even though this is a really exciting life event, or the end of that really hard life event was good, we still have to touch back on that life event and the confusing feelings and that came up. So it's really, it can just make your life so much better. Okay, so we're learning together. If you don't move that carried grief, it can lead to things like anxiety. I know that I see a lot of people with anxiety, and the anxiety is a lot of the time related to those emotions that get stuffed down from events that happened in people's lives. And our bodies and our brain are like, something's not going right. So it's on high alert looking for all of the threats. And sometimes the threats are just kind of like a little bomb inside you that's just sitting there. It's not going to go off, but it's taking up room, and you know it's there. And so touching that and helping diffuse that and get that thing out of you can really help with anxiety. Also depression. If you're afraid to express yourself, your body is naturally going to try to protect yourself and make you not move as much and make you not feel as much. Because if you're trying not to feel the bad things, the negative, the less comfortable things, you are also not going to be able to feel the more exciting, positive emotions that we enjoy so much. There's like a huge tie. We don't get to choose. You either receive all of it or you receive none of it. That's a really big theme lately, is receiving all of the experiences of life and being open to it. And the more you practice getting those emotions out that you've been holding, the more capacity you have to receive. We can go back to a ship analogy. I don't know, I'm into ships lately. So if there's a ship carrying a bunch of cargo and it's full of like junk, you have to move that junk out so that you can bring in the new stuff. When you're going to find treasure, you're not going to bring a ship full of things. You have to have room in it to embrace the new that comes in. And part of the exciting part is as you dig down, you're going to find nuggets of gold within that space. You're going to find nuggets of gold within that experience, and understanding more about who you are and what your life has been, and what you've overcome. Oh, all the gold. Okay, back to the book again. So many North Americans have really looked at grief as an enemy to be fought, and really it should be an experience to be embraced and befriended. So you're just going to lean into that and learn what that is and who you are, and really continue towards grace. So he has grace described in here as the knowing that you are not alone, that you are always accompanied. Grace expands your will by giving you a courage you did not have before. Grace invites you to befriend your grief and mourn your life losses. And that grace is inside you. You are never alone. You have you, and the more you can honor that, the better your life is going to be. Don't hide you. Don't hide your feelings. They need to be moved out. If you are unwilling or unable to give attention to how loss and grief shape your life path, You will project your symptoms onto your body, onto your relationships, and onto your worldview. Any unhealed grief will linger, affecting and influencing all parts of your life, your living, and your loving. And my beautiful people, we are designed to love. We are designed to give that love and to receive that love. And I know the life transitions are hard. Oh my goodness, we start off right from birth. We go from this warm, comfy, safe zone where we're constantly fed, the perfect temperature, everything's like awesome, we want for nothing, into this like cold, bright, oh my Lanta world where things are uncomfortable and stuff happens and it's like, ugh. But then we adapt to that, and then we start to look around and we're like, hey, there's this world to explore. And we just start growing and growing. We start off with transitions. And as babies, we know how to do it. We let that feeling come out. I think that's why babies cry when they first come out. They're like, oh my Lanta, I can't believe this is happening. And they scream. And then they do a lot of crying after, because that's the way they have to move these things out. They don't have a lot, but it sure is effective. So if you find yourself crying or wailing and going back to those basic ways of moving that grief out, good for you. You won't get stuck there forever. You won't. If you don't move them out, you do get stuck. Okay, so where do we learn how to do this? Well, it's through our families. A lot of it is through our families. It's through our culture. It's through our media. It's all over the place, but we learn it from our families. Some families have a long-held tradition of responding defensively in the face of loss. When family rules don't allow for those deep, true meanings, deep, true feelings, the capacity to mourn is inhibited, delayed, converted, or avoided deeply. What are you crying about? Let me give you something to cry about. That's a pretty big form of how that happens, but there's lots of little ways that we prove. It's like, oh, look at how strong that person is doing, and they didn't break down at all during the funeral, or look at all the changes that happened in that person's life, and let's just celebrate the good things of grad, and we won't even acknowledge the fact that it's really sad that they're leaving all of these familiar things behind and have to start adulting. To me, that always just seems as big of a change as going from in your mom's womb when you're like super warm and comfy and fed out into the big real world. It's a big change. And I wonder if that's why there's this thing called adulting that all of our beautiful young people talk about. Because they're trying to be like, hey, this is hard. But they don't have the words or the knowledge or the understanding that, or the capacity to like mourn. They're trying to mourn the loss of childhood as they move forward into adulthood. And I myself have been completely guilty of thinking, yeah, well, I did all the things. Yeah, you did. You did all the things. And maybe there's a better way to do all the things where I could do it and be more compassionate and kind and help people have the freedom and the strength to like move those out. Okay. This is a passionate topic for me, obviously. So, until you can authentically mourn life losses, you can become stuck. You are at risk. Like I said, from depression, anxiety, other problems. It comes out in people's skin. It comes out in their life actions. It comes out with like chronic illnesses. It comes out in so many ways. So grief is a natural response. It is the response that is the feelings and the images and the thoughts. Grief is very internal. And it is a natural response from losses and transitions as we move through life. If you have gone through life expressing the painful feelings, the big ones and the little ones, all along, you're probably not living in the shadows of grief. You're just ticking along. Things are awesome. You're just feeling the feels. However, most of us are what Dr. Alan Wolfelt calls grief swallowers, which I thought was fantastic. What a great way to explain it. We just suck it up, swallow that grief, and we deny the losses and the pains of the things that have happened. If you're one of those people, you're most likely living in the shadow of ghosts. You're grief ghosts. They're all around you. And you're just kind of, you're not experiencing the full beautiful rainbow of colors in this world. Have you ever noticed when you're feeling really, really fine and things are like incredible, like the colors of life are just so much bigger. And then when you're in depression or anxiety, the colors become muted. And I think that feeling all of the feelings helps clear away all the muck and help you see the colors better. And yeah, some of the colors, they're a little duller, but they're all part of it. If you're a painter, you know that you need to use lots of different kinds of shades, and you need to use light and dark and everything to make the painting more beautiful. Okay. The ghosts may be plenty. If you are like many of us, you've just been trucking along, pulling up your socks, moving on to the next thing, and not acknowledging the past or what has just happened in your world. I often like to slow people down when I'm talking to them in counseling and say, wait, let's stop for a second. That point sounds like it might have been painful. Or, wow, do you even realize the success in that moment that you just told me about? You gotta slow down a little bit. Slow down and acknowledge what's happening. If you look back on the past 365 days, 365 days doesn't sound like a lot, like a year, whatever. But what else happened in the last year? What has happened in the last week even? We're just charging forward and we're not even paying attention to what's happening. And to really feel the full experience of that, you gotta feel the full experience of that. And so befriending that, the loss and the pain and the emotions that come with transitions is very vital. It's so vital. So Dr. Alan Wolfelt also uses the term carried grief to describe unacknowledged and unmourned grief. So of course, because he uses it, I will probably be using it too. I just want you to realize that we carry it, and you carry it into your future if we don't move it out. We do not want that grief to stamp out our divine spark. We don't want that to sit there and kind of fester inside of us. We want to dig it out and brush off the gold that's inside it. And the only way to do that is to do the work and to get a little bit messy. We've been taught that pain is an indication that something was wrong, and we should do everything we can to eliminate that pain. So part of me agrees. Pain is definitely a sign that something's wrong. Like if you've had a loss or a transition, you're like, wait, there's going to be some protest. If you have a headache, you're going to be like, oh, I don't want that headache. Something's going on. In our society, though, we're like quick to reach for the Tylenol or the Advil. Sorry, that's like, you know, painkillers. And I love them. They're great. You can use them to get through your day. However, you also should be looking at what caused that headache. Am I dehydrated? Have I been sitting too long and need to move my body? Am I like really stressing about something and not paying attention to the emotions inside? We're often really quick to move out of pain without actually like looking at, what is this? What is this telling me? Do I need to slow down and think about myself? Do I need to honor the loss, honor that past that was so important to me? Instead of avoiding the pain, it's actually touching on and looking at what's happening. Normal thoughts and feelings after a loss are seen as unnecessary and unimportant. And I say, it's so important. Why do you think history is so important to us? How many people here like to watch history shows or shows based on history? It's because we like to look back. We like to see where we've been. It's curious. We have curiosity. And even for ourselves, looking back is important. I know little guys, like little kids, or even my older kids, we love to watch videos and look at photographs of our lives before. And those lives are different now, but that doesn't make those pictures, those images, those thoughts, those feelings any less important. They're all important. Your carried pain will keep trying to get your attention until you have discovered the courage to gently and in small doses be open to its presence. Small doses. You don't need to deep dive for hours and hours and hours and hours. Even when we'll carry on with the treasure ship, they don't go down there for 4 days. They go down, they find some stuff, they bring it up, they like spend some time up in the sea air doing the work before they have time to go back down again. They make sure they're fed, they're nourished, they're rested, they're clean, all of the things. Your life has been a mishmash of losses. So it can take some time to weave through that. And you are worth the time. We don't need to carry that forward. And as you learn to work through the old things, as new things come up, you can recognize them right away and be like, oh, I know what to do here. I know how to fully experience this situation. I know how to see all dimensions of it. And it's so much more amazing. Of course, the movie Inside Out comes to mind. I think everybody on the planet should see that movie. I hope they make a sequel. So, that was just the introduction, and that took half an hour. Grief. Humans are amazing, beautiful creatures, and we've been given the capacity to live our lives, and we're naturally born with the ability to just have the feelings come and go. You've seen little ones. They can be crying 1 minute and then laughing with pure joy in the next, and then devastated that something has been taken away from them, and then delighted in the new thing that comes. And granted, we don't react quite that same way, but we can help start to get into that process of living our lives and just going along with the beauty of it. I think I need a drink. Does any of you need a drink? It's always good to take care of yourself, even when you're in the middle of something that's important like this. Maybe especially when you're in the middle of something important like this. Part 1. Change means loss. Loss means grief. Is that internal? And grief requires mourning. It's moving out. Loss is an integral part of human existence, a fact which has profound consequences from birth to death. And this is from David Perez. I got new glasses. They're transitions, so forgive me if I'm like moving my head all around trying to figure them out. From the moment we are conceived, our lives are a series of transitions. Well, I definitely talked about in this introduction. It's so true. Just think about all of the transitions. Even like we transition from the weekend to the work week and then back again to the weekend. Like every day, all the things, that's transition. We transition from getting out of our cozy bed in the morning to getting out into the real world. We're always transitioning. And there's big transitions, and there's medium-sized transitions, and there's little transitions. So we're just learning to live in a wholehearted way. And living in a wholehearted way is being mindful. And that's wonderful if you can practice learning how to be mindful. We also need to be doing that deep dive, getting all of those things out. Okay. So, our culture teaches us to downplay the bad, strong feelings and emphasize the good ones. It's okay to laugh and giggle when we're feeling happy, but it's not okay to cry and throw temper tantrums when we're scared, anxious, angry, and sad. One of the biggest things that we can learn to do is just be still and let people have their feelings. So many people have not been able to have their feelings without repercussion. I'm not going to be your friend anymore. I don't think you're a very strong person. I don't like you anymore. I just can't handle all your stuff. So it's searching out who can be that person for you. Who can handle you and your emotions. Because when you first start feeling them, they can be quite large and overwhelming, and you can feel a little bit out of control. So it's so nice when you can find somebody who can help be a container for that. And if you can't find somebody, you can use a book, a journal. You can walk. I used to walk out by myself and rant and rave whenever I needed to process things and get it out. I would always say, I'm an out loud processor. But really, I was an out loud mourner. And that is incredible that we have that ability to go places and be able to move those things out. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between grief and mourning, and if you have seen my videos before, you will already probably know this. But it's also really good to just kind of look at that from another perspective, maybe another type of loss and through transition. There is a lovely quote that I love to share all the time, and there is no love without loss. And there is no moving beyond loss without some experiences of mourning. To be unable to mourn is to be unable to enter into the great human life cycle of death and rebirth. To be unable, that is, to live again. Eric Lifton. If you're living in the shadows of grief, you're not really living. You're existing. And you're burying things. You want to live. You want to live. And so again, grief is that constellation of the internal feelings and thoughts and images that are experienced when you have a loss. It's all very inside of you. It stays inside. Mourning is when you take the grief you have inside and express it outside of yourself. It's grief gone public. Mourning is crying. Mourning is talking about your painful feelings and thoughts. That's mourning. Mourning is posting your thoughts and feelings on social media. Mourning is creating art. Mourning is stomping your feet. Mourning is yelling at the garbage can because it's not getting emptied by the person who used to empty it. Mourning is so many things, and it has to be outside of you. We got to move those feelings out. Oh, it can be a little scary though, can't it? One of the things about understanding this is loving yourself. Self-love is a prerequisite to expressing love. Love outside yourself, being open to others. If you can't be open to yourself, it's quite hard to be, and it's taxing to be open to others. Self-love is to be true to your feelings and your needs when you're mourning. It's to realize you are worth it just as much as any other person on this earth. And in fact, you are your world. How you see your world is through you. So if you can see yourself with love and compassion, you're going to see the rest of the world with love and compassion. Authentic love can only take place if we don't cut ourselves out from the need of mourning. And instead of running from that grief, have the courage to be with it, to befriend that pain, and to experience it. You are worth it. I think we're all worth it. Courage grows from things in life that impact you deeply. I hear lots, I'm like, you're so strong, I'll say to people, and they're like, I don't feel strong. I'm like, but you're so brave, you have so much courage. Courage doesn't happen in easy times. Courage doesn't happen because it's fun. Courage happens when things are big and they impact us. Our life losses invite our hearts to be open. Open. Open to that pain. Open to experiences. And oh my Lanta, that is a scary thing to experience. I'm going to read this whole section. Instead of dying while we are alive, we can choose to remain open to our pain. If instead we deny our pain, we are also unknowingly defend against all that brings meaning and purpose to life, leaving us feeling alone and isolated, cut off from our own humanity. We are all human. We can all connect with the feeling of loss. We can all understand transition. It's hard. It seems really paradoxical to lean into that pain so that you can also feel joy. But I suspect if you're listening to this video, or if you're even here, you can understand. You can understand that thing that's almost, like, is so difficult to understand. So befriending your grief. Another good quote. To suppress the grief, the pain, is to condemn oneself to a living death. Living fully means feeling fully. It means being completely one with what you're experiencing and not holding it at arm's length. And this is from Philip Caplio. Fully open to feeling that, and to be sad about it, and be mad about it, be happy about it, and be glad about it, and be angry about it. All of the feelings. I think I heard recently there are 400 feeling words in the dictionary. 400! 400! That's a lot of feelings. And that's in the English dictionary. I wonder what it's like in other languages, in other cultures. How many words there are for feeling. Like, it's incredible. So try feeling them, all of them, and let them flow through. Refusing to descend into our life sorrows can destroy much of our capacity to enjoy life, living, and loving. If you're numbing those feelings, you're numbing other feelings. And oh, you deserve to feel all the feels. You deserve to have those giant, mind-blowing, heart-bursting love moments, and also those heart-tearing grief and loss moments. It's all together. We have to acknowledge it. Acknowledge that it's there inside you. You can't go around it. We have to go through it. It reminds me of a camp song. There's this big scary lake or swamp. You can't go around it. You have to go through it. And that's what this is like. It's a scary swamp. You're going to go through it to get to the other side. In our willingness to embrace the pain of our losses, we are in effect honoring our pain and freeing ourselves to live fully until we die. Honor the pain. When we initially experience loss, don't get me wrong, it's instinctive and normal and necessary to push away or avoid raw emotions for the moment. It's temporary. It's so much. You can't lean into all of it. You've gotta avoid some of it. Because as I've talked before, and I will talk again now, this needs to come in doses. And when these changes first happen, some of them are just so massive. And you can't spend all day in that space. Temporary. The thing is sometimes we're like, I'm just going to put this on the shelf for right now. And you put it on the shelf and you forget about it. And then the next one comes and you're like, oh, I'm just going to put this on the shelf for right now. And you put it on the shelf and then pretty soon you have like a closet. It's like a junk drawer. I was talking about junk drawers with one of the kids the other day. They're like, how do we have 2 junk drawers full of stuff? I'm like, dude, you should check out our place. We have so many junk drawers. Because we're going to put that away later. I know where it goes, but I'm just going to put it away later. And that's kind of what happens with us and then all of a sudden you're like, I don't even know where anything is anymore. And like everything is just chaos. So that's kind of a thing. But temporarily, when they first happen, it's okay. I'm not saying bury yourself open and be like, yay, I'm so glad this is happening. No. Take your time. Take your time. There's a delicate balance between the normal need for the evasion of reality and loss and the necessary encountering of the reality of loss. Oh, humans are so complex. So it's dipping in. Oh my gosh, the ship analogy again. It's dipping in, grabbing some stuff, and pulling it out. And, you know, there might be a situation where this one little thing that you deep dived in and it was so hard to get out, and you bring it and you're like, really? That's all I get for that little bit of work I did? But it's still really important. So try not to judge yourself as long as you're doing the work. Well, even, you know what I mean about the judging. So temporarily avoiding it is normal and necessary and survival. But please don't stay there. You're going to dose your grief. You're going to take time to deep dive, and then you're going to take time to deal with the muck that came up and hopefully find the treasure. And sometimes the treasure may seem really small and insignificant, but that doesn't matter. You still did the work, you still did the process, you still did the clearing. So dosing grief. The concept of dosing our grief recognizes that we cannot embrace the pain of grief all at once out of some ill-founded need to overcome it. Instead, we must allow ourselves to dose the pain, to feel it in small waves, and then allow it to retreat until we are ready for the next wave. I'm grateful that we don't get hit by those giant tsunami waves. They're smaller. And sometimes they're really long and we wonder if we're going to be able to breathe. But then just at the right time, they pull out again and we can breathe and take some time. So you're just riding the waves. So the essence of all of this is honoring your pain. And honoring means recognizing the value and respecting that pain. We live in a mourning, avoidant culture, and it is not natural to see grief as something to honor. Yet the capacity to love requires the necessity to mourn. To honor our grief is not self-destructive or harmful. It is life-sustaining, life-giving, honoring yourself. So I hope that you can start to bring up some of those losses, and through the process of this video series, it can help support you in realizing it's good to take time. It's good to take time to clean that out, to remember it and experience it and learn from it. We are equipped with the organic capacity to integrate our life transitions, losses, and endings. We're designed for it. We've been given these emotions. We've been given these bodies to move those emotions out. That's why I say our bodies are designed to love. Like I use my body to hug people. I use my body to prepare food. I use my body to not to clean. I don't do cleaning. That's my partner's job. But if I had to, and I have had to before I can. But our bodies are designed to move and to move that stuff out. Not just for others and for loving others, it's for loving ourselves too. So love yourself. Okay, I got distracted there. So the fact that we are capable of grieving and mourning reminds us that we are meant to embrace losses and integrate them into our lives. We are designed to integrate those things. Grief work and active mourning is the very pathway through which you reconcile your losses. You're going to surrender your losses and realize you can't control them. Oh, I'm just going to stop for a second. We just want to control everything, and we need to surrender to them and not control them. And in that, we have self-compassion and grace. Put your hand on your heart. Feel that self-compassion and grace. Oh, it's amazing. Befriending leads to an integration of losses into your life. Control leads to the refusal to surrender, and then the shadows of the ghosts of grief show up. The choice to surrender is yours, and yours alone. And I hope that you can, and I hope that you can find people or just ways, or your faith, anything, to kind of hold you in that. Your control, if you really want to be controlling, is choosing to surrender and choosing to mourn and learning how you mourn best for you. I remember one time I was really upset about something, and I had seen that people, there's two stories. I don't know, do I have time for that? Yeah, I do. Okay, so there's two stories. I was like, I'm just really upset about something. And so I had seen and heard about people that throw things and it makes them feel better. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try throwing something. And so I threw, this is like a long time ago, I had a phone, like, you know, the landline kind of phones. I threw it across the room hard, and it shattered on the wall, and it was so not satisfying for me because now didn't have a phone. So that one didn't work for me. And then I remember another time I was like, oh, and I thought I would be super dramatic, and no offense to people that are super dramatic, of course. Of course, whenever you say no offense, it means offense, but let's just get past that. So I went and I threw myself on my bed in this dramatic thing that I thought would help me feel better, and then I guess it kind of did help me feel better, because then I laughed at myself, because I was like, hey, that's not going to work either, because that is not fixing the situation. It's just making me laugh. Find the things that work for you. Mine might be going for a hike and just ranting, talking to somebody, lighting a candle, and being intentional about remembering somebody or something, doing a journal blog, talking with somebody that you love. There's so many things. So if you're looking for control, that's the control you have. You can choose. You can choose to live. When grief is a powerful experience, while grief is a powerful experience, so too is your capacity to help in your own healing. Compassionate companion. Be a compassionate companion to yourself. Help you mourn your carried pain and step out of the shadows of grief into the light. So you can be your own compassionate companion, and you can also find somebody else who can help be your compassionate companion. You are worth it. You may be guiding this journey. You have to go through it, but it's so much nicer when you have somebody who's willing to walk through it with you, even if it takes a little bit of time. I don't know if I've talked about that before, but in Forrest Gump ran across America, I don't know, like 12 times or something crazy like that, and he just had people like join him here or there and listen to him and talk with him and tell him about their stories, but they just like popped in and popped out. Nobody told him where to go, nobody told him how to do it. He was on his journey, and people popped in and kept him company. And that's beautiful. It's so beautiful. Okay. Thanks for participating and being in and listening to now and to the replay when it happens, to this Monday morning. And I appreciate that you are here and you are willing to work through your shadows of grief and love life. I know the holiday season is upon us, and there's a lot of people carrying their shadows of grief right now. And what better time to start working through it? What better time? Next week, we will be working on at least part 2, maybe part 2 and 3. I don't know yet. We'll see. And it's called Why We Carry Grief Instead of Mourn It. And I appreciate you, and I appreciate your humanity, and I appreciate that you've had losses and transitions just like we all have. And I hope that you find time and use your control to lean into that and do your own deep sea diving for treasure. Until next week. Take care.